Well, that sucked. Let's do some group therapy on the Believe in Astros podcast, shall we?
What's up, H-Town? Welcome to the Believe in Astros podcast, your home for all things Astros. With your hosts, sports writer Jeff Balke and Astros broadcaster and former third baseman Geoff Blum. Now, here's Balke and Blummer.
What is up, Astros fans? Welcome to a rather somber episode 97 of the Believe in Astros podcast on the Believe Podcasting Network. I'm Jeff Balke alongside my partner, Geoff Blum. And, well, it's time for Postmortem on the Astros as their season ended last night in a crushing Game 7, 11-4 loss to the Rangers. Morning, Blummer. How's your sports hangover?
It's definitely a hangover. I mean, yeah. It's a bitter pill to swallow, but at the same time, you know, it's kind of ironic. As I'm driving home, that you just kind of quiet, you're reminiscing over the season with your wife, and all of a sudden on the radio comes on Bittersweet Symphony by the Verve Pipe. And you're like, that's exactly what it is. It's just kind of bittersweet, you know?
Yeah.
We are so... I got to remind myself that this is the 7th opportunity they've had to go to the World Series. And in a season with so many ups and downs, so many injuries, so much adversity that these guys have had to overcome, we still got to Game 7. So kudos to the Astros, everybody in the organization, and everybody who fought hard on the field. Hell of a job. Did finish a little bit short because obviously we've become very, very used to going to the World Series, but great season nonetheless.
Yeah, we're spoiled, but 7 straight ALCS appearances is incredible. The fact that they made it to Game 7 of the ALCS, despite the fact that 2 days before the season was over, we didn't know if they were going to be in the postseason at all.
At all.
I mean, it's one of the weirdest endings you'll ever see to a season. They really had some struggles in a lot of different areas. Some they'll obviously need to address this offseason. Others, just were what they were. In Game 7, I think we saw, to me at least, it felt like some kind of the culmination of a lot of these things kind of imploding in upon themselves. It felt a little bit like an inevitable train wreck. Christian Javier made it only a third of an inning before he got pulled. He's been having great starts lately, but clearly, listen, I don't want to praise the Rangers, but let's be honest. They had a great approach last night. They decided to come out swinging. They've been struggling against the high fastball. They adjusted to that. And, it made the difference in the game. And, you like Dusty Baker said in the postgame, you never want to tip your hat to anybody, but their lineup is deep. And honestly, after watching the last couple of games, you kind of are just happy the Astros made it to Game 7.
Yes, the Rangers offense is legit. We knew that from the get-go, and that's what they built. They went out and bought and paid for that offense, and they've got it to work extremely well. So that's a credit to the Texas Rangers for going out there and executing game plans. And you kind of said something in that sentence and in that statement that really jumped out to me, and that was really evident throughout the course of this series. And even though that the Rangers I wish the Astros had scored this many runs at home. They only scored 12 runs at home in 3 games in Arlington. That kind of gives you a little bit of an idea that they're still able to go out there and swing it, even though they lost 3 games in Arlington. But the word that you said was the adjustments. The second time they faced Christian Javier, they got to him. They made the adjustment from facing Framber Valdez throughout the course of the season. They knew how to attack him. And it was that selective aggressiveness that was really good, because they went out there with that Corey Seager approach of, I'm looking to hammer the first pitch. If it's not something I want, I'm going to spit on it. I'm going to wait until I get a pitch that I can handle, and I'm going to go after it and drive it. And they kind of showed a little bit of power, and they showed a little bit of ability to hit with runners in scoring position, which you really got to appreciate, because on the other side, that's something we did not see from the Astros, was that hitting with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, they seem to take a page out of the Astros book and really use it.
It was very reminiscent of Astro offenses in the past. Yes,
absolutely.
I agree.
Now, having said all that, somebody on Twitter last night was like, hey, shouldn't we root for the Rangers now? No. absolutely not. I'm not rooting for the Rangers. Who are they kidding? Listen, it's Dallas. I'm not rooting for the Rangers.
That makes that's kind of oxymoronic. Is that the right thing? Because you hate them so vehemently for the last 48 years, however long they've been in existence, and then just because they beat you in the championship series, I'm going to cheer for in-state. I don't.
Let's cheer for the guy that just stole your girlfriend. Let's root them on and hope for their tremendous success. Like, no thanks.
Yeah, it's like that meme of that guy looking back at that chick, and while he's got his girlfriend. So you're going to hold on to your Astros, yet look at the Rangers? No. I don't think so.
No, absolutely not. There were some bright spots for the Astros in this series. I mean, Jose Altuve is just a legend. He is a legend, and Yordan Alvarez is becoming one. Just really Yordan Alvarez, 6 straight multi-hit games in the postseason, never been done before. Jose Altuve now 2 home runs shy of Manny Ramirez for the all-time record. Mm-hmm. You just got to watch those guys and marvel. I mean, they're incredible.
Yeah, I don't care what you feel about them. At the end of the day, if you're sitting there arguing, but they did this, they did that, shut up, man. Because you know what? You're going to get blown out of the water by the career stats. Right. The dude has played in over 100 postseason games. He has won batting titles. He has been consistent with or without whatever you think that you thought he used that he didn't use.
Right.
And give the guy some credit, because the overarching career is going to dwarf any ridiculous comment that you make on Twitter because you feel that hitting the send button validates your idea. It doesn't, because this guy overwhelms everything you've ever thought, because he's been able to go out there and do it for as many years as he has. And he's only 2 home runs behind Manny Ramirez now as far as the home run title in the postseason, which is remarkable. And Yordan Alvarez, I'm not sure why, but you and I and a lot of people here in Houston have been going, this guy's going to be good. And then he gets better. And the next year he gets better. And then all of a sudden we saw what we saw in this postseason. Like you said, 6 straight multi-hit games in the playoffs against the best pitching in all of baseball. This guy is legitimate, but for whatever reason, it takes a national broadcaster to say what we've been saying for 4 years now. But he's legit.
I'm telling you, if I was Bruce Bochy before the last 2 games, I would have gone to the umpire before the start of the game, and I'd been like, anytime he comes up, just walk him. I don't care if there's bases loaded. I don't care. I'd put him on. It's ridiculous. He's Barry Bonds-like.
He is Barry Bonds-like. And I said that 2 years. I'm not going to try and tout myself. I'm just saying this was a comment that I made 2 years ago, because he was on a stretch where he was hitting, 15 home runs in a month. Yes. But every time he didn't get a pitch, he didn't chase it. He walked. Yeah. That's why his OPS is over 1,000, comparable to what Barry Bonds did in his career. He has got the eye, he's got the discipline, and he's got the power and the ability to get base hits. That's why he's going to continue to project in that era, or in that idea of maybe a Barry Bonds. But you kind of hit on something. Bochy managed his ass off. He's got an electric lineup, and granted, he's got the keys to maybe a Lamborghini or a GT350 or whatever you want to call it, and he let it run. But at the same time, he made some very quality moves that were maybe under the radar and overshadowed by a very good offense and quality pitching at the time.
Well, he did some really, I thought, some pretty savvy maneuvers. The kid, is it Carver, that the center fielder, like he would bring him in after just a couple of innings.
Yeah, Evan Carter. Yeah,
Evan Carter.
He was a big piece.
He brought him in just in strategic places that I thought were really smart. He pitched around guys he needed to pitch around when they could. He was good at, honestly, their bullpen was pretty good in this postseason series, despite being so maligned and so terrible earlier. He really did spend quite a gem of a series against the Astros. Two of the oldest managers in baseball, and they went after one another. I thought Dusty Baker honestly was quite good in this series, up until I feel like maybe the last game or two where he made a few questions. I think there were a few times when he just didn't seem to want to pull the trigger on things that he maybe should have. But overall, I thought it was a pretty well managed series by both.
Yeah, and I think that Game 7 was just, a microcosm of the 2023 season.
Yes.
Bad pitching at bad time, offense goes quiet at a bad time, some questionable defense, and just inconsistency. And then maybe guys in positions, where they shouldn't be, or maybe guys that weren't in the position we thought they should have been. But at the same time, we can sit here and break down Game 7. The Astros got blown out, but at the same time, there were 3 other home games that they were very much in reach of going out there and winning, and just weren't able to win at home. And I saw an amazing stat that in the last 29 home games, including the postseason, the Astros were 7-22.
Oh, God, that is an incredible.
And that answers why they're not in the World Series.
Well, and look, let's be honest. We'll talk about it right now. They are the only team in the history of professional sport in North America who has now lost 2 7-game series where they lost every home game. Before 2019, that had never happened in any professional sport. And now it's happened twice, and the team that had it happen is the Astros. I started thinking about this past week, and it's been coming up for me more and more in my head, and as my friends bring it up with me too. Do the Astros as an organization, need to think about having a larger discussion with players, with coaches, with whoever, to analyze what specifically might be creating this problem? I mean, listen, the Astros have a lot of right-handed bats, right? And it seems to me that if you just kind of look at the numbers, the lefties have done pretty well in Minute Maid Park. You would think right-handed bats would do really well because of the short porch and left. That hasn't been the case. So you have to start wondering, is there something that is physically going on? We talked about the batter's eye earlier this year. I wonder if the Astros as an organization, Jim Crane, he's not going to be happy about any of this. So he's going to do whatever due diligence he has to. You have to start wondering, do they need to look at the configuration of what is going on inside Minute Maid Park and see if there is some sort of an issue there?
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, and that may be a multiple podcast conversation, because you start to unpack a lot of that and what's going on at home, not just everything around the ballpark, everything in the clubhouse, everything at home before these guys get there. Because yes, there's responsibility on the organization to put your team in the best position to win, but there's also there's responsibility on the player itself. What am I doing wrong at home? How do I fix this? Do I need to go to Ninfa's, or do I need to go to El Tiempo? Where's that meal that's getting me the hits? It comes down to stuff like that sometimes. Yeah. But at the same time, what did you do on the road that made you so successful, and how do you get that at home? You mentioned the batter's eye. I'm kind of over the batter's eye because the opposing team does a pretty damn good job of hitting in the same situation. And now maybe it's left-handed pitching, maybe getting a left-hander that throws out of that arm slot that's tough to see out of that backdrop. I don't know. Yeah. But I like your idea of sitting down and getting 3 to 5 guys in your lineup. Get guys that have been there for a while, like a Bregman and Altuve. Obviously, have Yordan Alvarez in every conversation you have, and then
absolutely
get Yainer Diaz in there. Right. Get Gray Kessinger. Get guys that are younger who are getting used to that, and then just all of a sudden throw everything on the table and go, look. If one guy couldn't see, the other guy could see. Okay, well, that kind of offsets the batter's eye. Well, what else is going on? Right. And then have that discussion, but and on the other hand, have all your baseball ops guys that write algorithms, and then have your front office, have Jim Crane and, the business side of it get in there, just so that everybody's looking at this from different angles, and maybe you come to something. I like that idea. Yeah. Just kind of a team powwow and see what's going on.
I'm kind of interested, and maybe I'll dig a little bit into this over the next week or so. I'm very interested to see the overall splits at Minute Maid Park. I'd be very curious to see how have right-handed batters done against righties, against lefties, how lefties done.
The other thing is, why was it this year?
Well, you're true, Blum, but if you go back, 2017 was kind of like this too. They weren't. Yeah,
they were average at home. Yeah,
and if you look at the numbers overall, I saw somebody posted a stat saying that overall at home, the Astros have not been great over this era. They have been
only 2019. Yeah, and that was the greatest team I've ever seen.
Right. Exactly. So it's
they
weird.
lost every home game in the World Series.
Exactly. So I just feel like it's a conversation that has to be had just to see, look, maybe nothing is wrong, right? Maybe this is just in people's heads.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just, who knows? Maybe this is just one of those weird anomalous things that happens. But yeah, I mean, they owe it to themselves to try and figure it out. It's like, maybe I'm just dizzy because I've got an ear infection, or because I just woke up too fast and jumped out of bed, or maybe I've got a brain tumor. I don't know. Maybe an MRI would help. You know what I'm saying? It's like, just try to diagnose something. We don't know what it is, but figure it out. See if you can figure it out. Aside from that, I do think I'm sorry, Blummer. Go ahead.
No, and just be open-minded too. Have, like you nailed it with having the conversation, and be open-minded both on the management side and the player side. Just be like, we need to correct this. How do we do it? And have that open mind.
Well, take a wide open approach. Say, all right, let's. And by the way, Major League Baseball has always been very open about allowing organizations to tour other facilities, right?
Yeah.
Why not go check out the Mariners Stadium? Go check out Arlington. The Astros hit so well in some of these ballparks. Go figure that out. Like, why are they hitting so well
That's
there?
another great idea.
What's the deal? Like, what can you do to sort of mimic? Look, Arlington's a lot like Houston. We've talked about it. Minute Maid Park, right?
Yeah.
But there's got to be some differences, and it can't just be, well, the crowd is annoying, or maybe it is. I don't know. Let's
I don't know.
figure
It
it
seems
out.
to be half Astros when they go up there.
Whew, ain't that the truth? So there are a few guys I am concerned about. We should, going into the offseason, we'll get into more.
I hate
off-season.
this part, but it has to be done.
I know we'll go into some more off-season stuff in the next week or two. But just from this series, and really looking at this season, we know that Martin Maldonado has had a tough year. And we know that he is a free agent. If he comes back, he's likely coming back in a backup role. If he doesn't, he'll move on to some other team. I think we all know Yainer Diaz is the guy of the future at the catcher. Okay, that's fine. But then we have to start looking and say, okay, what happened to Jeremy Peña this year? There's been a lot of talk about his swing. Do you think they go through? I mean, look, he's only hit 10 home runs this year. He obviously is hitting a boatload of ground balls. He's getting on top of the baseball a lot. Is this a guy? I've got to assume the Astros are going to try to retool his swing a little bit this offseason. Harder to do during the season, obviously. What do you think you do if you're a guy like Jeremy Peña and you find yourself no longer driving the ball like you had before?
Man, this is a tough one, because I think he's gone a good 400 or 500 at bats.
Yes.
I feel like, the last home run he hit was maybe in June or July or something crazy like that. And he did try to make some swing adjustments throughout the course of the season before reverting back to some semblance of what his swing was in 2022.
Right.
And it's so hard to dissect, but I would imagine, you talked about the Astros trying to, recommend overhauling a swing. I think that Jeremy Peña, should really kind of evaluate and look at a lot of video for the next 2 weeks. If he wants to watch the World Series, watch the World Series, which I'm sure he will. But at the same time, in between commercial breaks, I would continue to watch my swing from 2022 to 2023 and see if I can find any differences. And if I do find those differences, just make some notes. And after a couple of weeks, after the season's over, and I've got my legs back under me, I'm feeling healthy again, maybe get back in the cage and start tinkering a little bit, because it's not going to be easy to kind of overhaul a swing, but you do have an entire offseason to go do that, because the power is going to be an issue. He's fantastic defensively. And I think if he does hit 260, 270, steals bases and scores runs, I'm still going to be fine with Jeremy Peña at shortstop. But knowing that I've got the potential of a 20 home run guy in that body, I'm going to try and find that guy, because if I can maximize the opportunity with that swing, I'm going to find it. And I think that's where he's got to be. Well,
yeah, he's not Adam Everett to pull that, out of there.
No,
where,
I'm with you.
He's not a solely defensive player that's going to be out there. He is a very good hitter.
Fire today, dude.
Hey, that's what happens sometimes. Your brain. Look, I was awake for a long time last night trying to figure it out.
Endorphins are popping.
I was up. I was just like, I'm not a super emotional guy when it comes to these types of things. Normally I try to be, but last night it was all coming out of me. Maybe it was because I just got my brother-in-law, Eric, who's the biggest Astros fan. He was like, he is an emotional volcano when it comes to the Astros. So maybe he got me fired up because I talked to him right before the game. But I tell you, with a guy like Peña, the thing that's interesting to me about him is that it's not just that he lost his power and that it seemed to just disappear. Because you're right, his 10 home runs all came in like the first third of the season, something like that. But the thing with Peña that's fascinating to me is his strike zone recognition got better this year. He struck out less. He was actually better at seeing the ball. He was better at taking pitches. And yet, when he did swing at pitches he just couldn't connect with him. He just didn't barrel anything up. I haven't looked at his barrel rates, but they've got to be way down from last year, despite the fact that his strike zone recognition is up. It's weird. It's bizarre.
Yeah, and that's where you kind of find yourself. Do I want the home run strikeout guy, or do I want the put it in play soft contact guy and no strikeout? I don't know. I think a lot of us would probably rather have the power guy up there than the guy that's just kind of punching it around with low exit velocities. I'm with you as far as the barrel rate could give us a good indication of what's going on.
I mean, he sure is more fun when he's hitting home runs. I'll say that. And the guy defensively, he's a vacuum cleaner at shortstop.
He makes it look too easy, man. Sometimes this sounds terrible, but this is the ex-ball player. Sometimes it pisses me off how easy he makes it look. Him and Bregman, man, that left side of the infield, dude, defensively, I'm like, you sons of bitches, man. Like, it's not that easy. You guys make it look good.
Buddy, you think I don't look at great musicians sometimes and be like, man, F you. Are you kidding?
Damn that guy.
Like, what did you just
He's
do?
Way better than I am.
It's like, and not just way better, but like, I can't even imagine. I saw a guy years ago, this guy, Victor Wooten. I remember watching him play and saying, I didn't even know that was physically possible. And that's the kind of nonsense. So, yeah, I'm with you. I don't blame you for being pissed about that. The other guy, I feel like we've got to kind of talk about. Listen, there's a lot across the spectrum, and we'll dig into that later. But Kyle Tucker really, really he looked like a mess this postseason. I mean, he looked like a shell of himself. And here's the thing about Kyle Tucker. He's never been great in the postseason. You look at his numbers. He's always been a very mediocre player in the postseason. But he's never been like this. And you just saw him. Like, I don't know about you, Blummer, but it looked to me like his body language was just wrong in this series. There was a lot of slumping. He was mistiming jumps in the outfield, stuff that he doesn't normally do. Defensively, he looked off. I don't know what. I mean, a friend of mine was like, is there something going on with his family? Like, he just did not look like the Kyle Tucker that we're used to. And even though he had a great season by all measurements, just did not look right.
Yeah, well, shoot, I hope nothing comes out about his family and he was dealing with something in the middle of it or an injury even. I mean, that would be terrible because, we are going to pass judgment because the numbers just don't match up to what we saw with the regular season. Right. And, why not compare him to other guys on his team? There's, Alex Bregman has had pretty good regular seasons, but he's great in the postseason. Yes. You've got Jose Altuve, who's been great in the regular season. He's able to take it into the postseason. Yordan Alvarez, we could name a couple of different guys. And, the Carlos Correas who have good regular seasons, but really explode in the postseason. And, to Tucker's credit, he is a phenomenal talent. He's a legitimate, for me, 30-30 guy. And I agree with you that he is a Gold Glove caliber when he wants to be. But I think what we saw in this postseason is maybe a little bit of that moodiness and taking some of those at bats to the outfield. Yeah. And it turned out to maybe hurt the team a little bit. But at the same time, if you're a ball player, if you have the opportunity in the postseason to do damage, what are you going to be remembered for? Are you going to be remembered? And this is I don't know if this is fair or not, but are you going to be remembered for what you did in the regular season, or are you going to be remembered for what you did in the postseason? And what's interesting is that you're going to say Kyle Tucker, phenomenal regular season guy, but couldn't get it done in the postseason. Right. There's always going to be that but at the end of the sentence for him, and until he turns it around. And unfortunately, this postseason, it got to him again. It's frustrating for us to watch because we know how damn good this guy can be. But for whatever reason, it just snowballed in this postseason.
I forget who it was that said it. NBA player, for old timer, said,
I set you up for this because I love this quote.
It's like in the regular season, you make your name. In the playoffs, you make your fame. And that's just kind of how it goes. There's a reason why why Reggie Jackson has Mr. October on everything. I mean, it's weird, but I would do it too. You know what I mean? I think the interesting thing, I want to ask you about this, Blummer. You said something that was really interesting to me, and I'm curious from a former ball player perspective, how often does one part of the game impact another? So you said he took his at-bats out into the outfield with him. How often does that happen, and what do you do about that when that comes up?
Oh, it definitely happens. If you're slumping, you could go one of two ways. You can slump and you can run out to the outfield and take those at bats and just kind of hang your head and dwell over every single pitch you've seen. And if you're thinking about that, you're not going to react to what's happening in front of you at that given moment, right, depending on if you're playing the infield or outfield. You're going to get a bad jump because you're going, why didn't I square up that fastball? Oh shit, here comes the ball. That kind of thing. Or and this is, I did that early on in my career, but I understood that, my at-bats were going to be limited because I was that utility type guy. Mm-hmm. So was I going to sit there and dwell on every at-bat, or was I going to go out there and try and prove that I belong on a roster by playing good defense? And I think what you see with a lot of guys, and, this may happen for a Jeremy Peña, this may happen for guys like Mauricio Dubon and Alex Bregman, but, I think even Jose Abreu kind of mentioned it during the course of the season is my philosophy was, if I'm not getting hits, I'm not going to let anybody else get hits.
Right.
I want somebody else to feel my pain. So I'm going to go out there and maybe try a little bit harder or be a little more ready on defense. And I think that's a mentality you've got to adopt as a player. And I think the longer you play, the more you understand that and the more you respect that. Because when I take my at-bats onto the field, that's selfish. There's 8 other guys on that diamond with me fighting tooth and nail to win these games. And I need to support them the best I can. If it's not with my bat, it better damn well be with my leather.
Yeah, no doubt. And it's a good way to put it. And it's also I know from anything, sports or otherwise, if you have the ability to take part of whatever it is you're doing and be really solid in that, it eventually does translate to the rest as well. If you're struggling in one part of something, if you can just be like, all right, I'm going to bear down and make sure I do this right and well, then it will eventually translate. I've never interviewed Kyle Tucker before or really spoken to him, but he does seem like a very soft-spoken kind of introspective dude. And maybe a little sports psychology wouldn't hurt. Just to give him a little chance.
Nobody's above it. Not this day and age.
Oh, no,
absolutely
man.
Not. I mean, anxiety is real. Pressure is real. The money you're playing for, you're trying to provide for family. You're trying to provide for your team. None of that's real. Nobody should. If he wants to talk about it, talk about it. If he doesn't, do it behind closed doors. Do not be ashamed of it, of the opportunity to try and be better and use some different avenues to mix that up a little bit. Do not be ashamed of that. It happens to a lot of us.
Absolutely not, dude. You're talking about someone who suffered from anxiety for his entire life. Like, I didn't realize until my 30s when I went to the doctor and he's like, how are you doing otherwise? I'm like, fine, other than waking up in the middle of the night feeling like I'm going to die. He's like, what?
Yeah.
And I said, he goes,
scary.
He said, you have panic attacks? I said, is that what those are? And he goes, how long have you been having them? I'm like, I don't know, since I was born.
Man.
So yeah, when that stuff hits and you don't know what's going on and then you finally figure it out, it's a massive change in your life. It radically alters how you perceive everything. And, and so if that is the case, and I don't know that is, but if it is, man, by all means, there should be absolutely no stigma on anybody struggling with mental health is no different than physical health. If you've got a problem dealing with something psychologically, it's no different than if you got a blown spootinator, to quote Flower. Sometimes the blown spootinator's in your head, not in your rest of your body.
Damn right.
You may as well fix it. Right. So it was widely reported last night. Chandler Rome was the first one that Dusty Baker has told people that he is intending to retire. It is not been officially confirmed. It seems like the right time for Baker, who's been just an incredible manager and player for so many years. I should know we've had a lot of issues with Dusty Baker over the course of this year. All of Astros fans have, but it's worth noting that I'm not sure if there was anyone better than Dusty Baker to shepherd them through the last 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he really righted the ship, stabilized the organization at a time, gave them legitimacy at a time when the rest of the world wanted to burn them to the ground. To me, if this is his, swan song and he is retiring, he's deserving of all the praise you can lump on him, whatever, issues may have transpired over the last year.
No, he warrants every platitude you can throw at him because he deserves it. He's a baseball lifer, and with good reason too, because he's brought so much to the game. He played the game hard, he managed the game hard, and he did the best that he could. And I can't agree with you more with Jim Crane. Hiring Dusty in a tornado of controversy and negativity, to hire a guy like Dusty Baker meant the world to not only the city of Houston, but those guys in that clubhouse. He diverted a lot of negative attention because he had that prestige and that honor in the game, and he put up a good shield for those guys in a time of need. And he did, like you said, shepherd those guys through some tough moments. This dude has experienced everything, the greatness and the bad part of not just baseball, but society. And he has learned and gleaned a lot of information and given that back to the players. I love Dusty. He's always been a positive influence on me, even when I've been playing against him. I have a lot of experience with him being a manager on the other side. We've talked a lot of stories, and he's one of the better people in the game of baseball. And no matter what the decision he makes, I'm going to cheer him the rest of the way. That Hall of Fame speech is going to be legendary because he is going to go in the Hall of Fame for that playing and that managerial career. But at the same time, let's let the season cool a little bit, before we start to expect Dusty to make any decisions like that. Because I think he also said in his post-game presser, it's a time to evaluate, because when you're in the moment, that's all you're worried about is how do I get to the next W in the next game? How do I move on to the next day? Now that day is gone because Game 7 did not go the Astros' way. And now you sit back, reflect, evaluate, and move on. He'll make the prudent decision, and I think the Astros will too. Yeah, I agree. I think that's a really good way to sum it up. If we are heading in the offseason, before we get deep into that, because like I said, we'll dig into the offseason when it's a little less, the season is a little less fresh in our memories. But since we are talking about that, setting managerial issues aside, there are going to be a number of priorities the Astros are going to have to deal with this offseason. If somebody asked you, where do you start? Like, where's the first place you go? When you're talking about dealing with those off-season priorities? You make a list of who's becoming a free agent. And I think if you looked at it immediately right now in this given moment on October 24th, you say, we have an issue at catcher. We don't know who our center fielder is. Those are the two for me. We're losing Michael Brantley in left field, so we're going to need that left-handed, bat in left field possibly. And then I'm looking at the starting rotation. I think the bullpen did well enough, but you're looking at the starting rotation. But I'm also, when you look at the starting rotation, you have got to remind yourself that health was not on the side of the Astros this season. So when you wake up in February and you start to send out all the itineraries and get guys to spring training, there's a strong hope in my mind and in my heart that Lance McCullers Jr. and Luis Garcia will be back in that rotation. And, is Framber Valdez going to be in that rotation? I think the rotation's a big part, and maybe the starting point, because at catcher, we know, like you just mentioned earlier in the podcast, Yainer Diaz is going to slot in. He is going to be that catcher. Now you got to worry about the backup. So now you have to think about center field. Is Chaz my guy? Where are we going to move on from that? But the rotation is the primary issue for me because I need somebody to protect Justin Verlander. I need to get Framber Valdez right. And if I get those two guys healthy, like I just said, that's a strong foursome right there.
It is. And you have to assume Hunter Brown's going to, get better.
Compete. Yep.
You also, I mean, and there are, like, most of the free agent issues are going to be in the bullpen. Hector Neris is going to be up for free agency. Phil Maton's going to be up for free agency. So Stanek. So you're going to have to make some decisions there. But bullpen arms, the Astros have been pretty efficient at procuring bullpen arms throughout the years.
As long as you don't pay Montero type money, you can go find some guys.
As somebody said, can we mention the fact that they gave Montero, they gave Neris money to Montero? It's like, but I will say this: I'm going to throw one name out there, and then we'll obviously more of this to come in the weeks to come. But Cody Bellinger, I mean, you cannot argue that he had an incredibly productive season. He's a left-handed bat. He's an elite defensive player in center field. Also plays first base, which means he could back up Abreu, who clearly needs more time off during the season because he was better when he had time off and he came back. That's a guy, if the Astros are going to start throwing around money, that might be the guy to look at to heave some money at this offseason. All right, a couple of baseball things before we finish up. First, I want to address the officiating in this postseason a little bit because it has been horrible. Like it's been bad on everybody. Like I was reading a story about how, like, in the NLCS they were complaining about the poor officiating. In Game 6 of this series, the strike accuracy percentage was 73%. 1 in 4 strikes was called incorrectly. I mean, you cannot have that. That is just, you can't have that in the postseason. You shouldn't have that in the regular season. But what is Angel Hernandez back there? Like, you can't have this. And so my question and my sort of wondering is, because there have been a lot of complaints, it's not just coming from the Astros and the Rangers. Does this incentivize Major League Baseball at all to start moving towards the system to question balls and strikes? I mean, they've had massive success with the pitch clock this year, with the all of the different things they've done to improve offense. If you do that, let's just say it. If you do that and you tighten up the strike zone, guess what also increases? Offense.
Damn right.
So many strikeouts this year. It's like more strikeouts than ever. So if you tighten up that strike zone, you're not going to have as many strikeouts. You're going to have more offense. That's what they want. I mean, they've already had it in AAA. Just saying.
Well, everything starts there. Manfred's not afraid to unilaterally make a decision. So who knows what he's doing? But that's the disclaimer at the beginning of this topic is, we know we're Astro fans, but this has been league-wide.
Yes.
This has been everybody.
Yep.
And I couldn't agree more. And I had this conversation on a radio station just yesterday that it's not just the Astros-Rangers series. It has been everywhere in the playoffs. And you figure that, these umpires are graded out, and they're given opportunities in the postseason for being good. I don't know what's happened here in the last couple of, the last 10 games on both sides, where the zone has just all of a sudden become erratic. It's been inconsistent. And that's the only thing as a hitter. Just be consistent. Right. Even for a pitcher, just be consistent. And it's been, okay, the inside corner is open up in the first 3 innings, and then it's gone in the next 3 innings. Where does it go? But I'm not sure how to correct it. I would err on the side of letting these guys try to do a better job, because there's something obviously in the technique or what they're seeing that is not allowing them to call balls and strikes the way they should, or as consistently as they should. But also at the same time, I've never sat behind home plate and tried to call a 94-mile-an-hour slider. I've never tried to call a 96-mile-an-hour sinker. It's a hard job. I respect what they're doing. But yes, I do believe that they can do better.
Yeah.
Because it's having an impact.
Yeah. Look, I don't want to stand behind a plate and try to and look at a 95 mile an hour slider, right? I don't want to see one.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really want to be back there. I'm not interested in that position. So I do have respect for these guys who get back there and do it, but for the integrity of the game, and honestly, for all the things that baseball wants to do, right? I mean, they want to increase the offense. They want to get, they want to their own arguments, they want to decrease strikeouts because they've been it's been such a huge number the last two years. Well, you can do that if you call a tighter strike zone. I mean, that's the deal.
I'm going to invent something right now. I just had an epiphany.
Ooh.
You know the Google glasses where you could like read the internet on the inside of the glasses?
Oh my God.
How come we can't have a strike zone illuminated in the glasses that they can see ball or strike instantly and make the call?
Holy shit, Blummer, you just blew my mind. This is like that scene in Night Shift when Michael Keaton is like, why don't we feed mayonnaise to the tuna fish? He's like, note to self, call Starkist. Like, Blummer, get on the phone with somebody. Call an inventor. Patent that shit.
The clear specs, you can see everything happening. And when the pitch is not coming, there's no strike zone in the glasses. You can make the call. But, man, have the strike zone in the lenses. We can see immediately, make the call. And if somebody bitches, you can say, hey, bro, I just saw it clip the edge.
Oh my God, dude, Blum. Look, man, this is why you are who you are. That is, speaking of being on fire, that's the most genius idea I've heard in a long time. Look, holy crap. All right, baseball, you're on notice. Get them glasses moving. I was going to say call Elon Musk. Don't call Elon Musk. We don't want anything to do with Elon Musk. Call somebody.
Smart guy may not want to be involved. Yeah, I get it.
Get Stanford on the phone immediately. Get the engineering department.
Stanford, come on, man. Call Cal. Let's go.
Okay,
here. Call these guys. Call these guys right here.
Right, Cal. Get MIT on the phone. How about that? We'll get MIT on the phone.
I can
get some
handle
engineers
that.
on this problem. Call NASA. NASA's got to have some of those kind of glasses laying around,
going to
right?
League City tomorrow.
You should get down there immediately. You'd be like,
listen, get a patent on this thing.
Guys, we got to get this started. Last thing, by the way, we have another crazy series. The Diamondbacks they are relentless against Philly. It's amazing. And your buddy, Steve Sparks, said something yesterday on the radio that absolutely floored me. I could not believe it. And that is, in the entire history of the Philadelphia Phillies franchise, they have never played a Game 7.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
Isn't that crazy?
That is insane. Until now. They're going to play one tonight. That is the craziest thing I've ever heard. And all my in-law relatives who are in Philly are going to be beside themselves tonight, I'm sure. But what a wild series for them.
It's an interesting series. Yeah, it goes to, I don't know what the quote is, but it's like the age and treachery of the Phillies up against the youth and exuberance of the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Right.
Matching up. It's been a lot of fun to watch. Yeah. I think the Phillies are a better team, but that's why we play the game. And I tell you what, there has been a lot of fight in the Arizona Diamondbacks. For them to win that Game 6 behind Merrill Kelly, that was very interesting to watch and see them go out there. I'm thoroughly intrigued and excited about Game 7 for them tonight too.
Yeah,
and,
sure.
And kudos to baseball, whatever the baseball gods are doing, because I am never going to give Rob Manfred any credit for this. But having 2 Game 7s in these championship series, thank you, Major League Baseball. Thank you, teams.
Yeah.
Because they're exciting as hell, man. I love it. The stories have been great. The series, like you said, in the National League has been phenomenal. And we get another 9 innings of Game 7. I just literally got goosebumps. It's awesome.
Dude, it's the 2 best words in sports, Game 7. It is
100%. Any sport.
It's just absolutely phenomenal. And listen, the Arizona Diamondbacks are having to face I don't know if it's like the reject cast of Duck Dynasty, but that's sort of what it feels like out there. And I mean, it is crazy. Watching those, and I'm obviously ensconced in Astros when it's postseason, but man, watching some of those games are bonkers. Like, I honestly, selfishly, as just a fan of like fireworks in baseball. I want to see the Phillies and Rangers. It's the two best offenses in baseball. Just like crazy how much power they have and how much dynamism they have as two squads. But God, I cannot help but root for the Diamondbacks. They have been just relentless. They won't go away, and I love that.
Mm-hmm. And they have guys overachieving. You love seeing that in the postseason. Those guys that overachieve. You talked about making a name in the regular season. Some of these guys are making their fame right now, having a big NLCS.
No doubt about it. Well, hey, you played there, Blummer. You played for the Diamondbacks.
I did. I'm always cheering for that X team.
Yeah, there you go. I was figuring you'd have a little rooting interest there.
Are you ready? Are you ready for this connection too?
Oh, I'm ready.
So obviously, I got paid by the Diamondbacks. I'm not sure I played all that much for them because I was hurt the entire time.
Fair.
But one of their center fielders, Alec Thomas, was shagging fly balls for me and the White Sox in 2005 at the age of about 4 or 5 years old, because he was the son of the strength and conditioning coordinator, Alan Thomas, at the time. So there's a connection there. And it was really great to see somebody that I saw at 5 years old now getting a chance to play in Game 7 of the NLCS. Ooh. So I'm partially kind of on. I want to see Alec get in there. That'd be great.
I thought you were right then going to say I'm partially responsible for how great he is today, and then I was going to be like, yes. I was like, I feel a little responsible.
I taught him everything he knows.
He shagged my fly balls. What do you think about that? Nice.
I mean, granted, he came running in, but whatever. No, they weren't hit very deep.
Well. Like you said, you got paid, but you didn't play that much. So it happens. You were in I like to call it the twilight of your career. You were in the golden days of the so that's fine. We all go through that, Blummer. Listen, you can still hit a baseball a lot farther than 95% of people out there. So you can just translate it to the golf course.
Yes, please.
That's the main thing. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us again. We're going to have – look, the offseason is upon us. The Hot Stove League is going to happen. We're definitely going to need to sit down and start thinking about what the Astros are going to do move-wise. We'll see what shakes out with the managerial situation. I'm sure that'll come to some kind of conclusion over the next couple of weeks. So please be sure to stay tuned. Thanks to everybody who's been listening throughout this postseason. I saw the other day we're up in the top 30. Baseball podcast. So just really appreciate it. You can find us on social media on X and Instagram at Believe in Astros. You can find Blummer and I pretty much everywhere because we are social media hosts at Blummer27 and at Jeff Balke.
Boats and hose.
That's exactly right. And thanks for everybody who's been following this whole season. I mean, you guys are awesome. It's been a crazy season. I mean, really, truly, like nothing I've kind of ever witnessed. And, all good things come to an end, I guess. But the Astros are still really, really good. Let's not forget that. And so, they're going to make some changes this offseason. They're going to come back fired up and ready to go next year. And listen, TK said on the post game last night, what is the first call? 224? Is that what I heard?
224.
Unbelievable. It's October the 24th.
6 months from now?
November, December, January, February. That's 4 months from now, Blummer.
Oh, shit.
In 4 months.
I better get ready, man.
Dude, you better start prepping now. Space City Home Network. Get ready.
Yeah.
You better get ready because here it comes.